So let's talk about simulation. So as I mentioned before, so Creo Simulation Live was introduced back in Creo 5. I'm trying to remember now because it was backported to a few versions. So this was basically between the relationship between PDC, a result of the relationship between PDC and ANSYS, where the ANSYS Discovery Live tool was brought in embedded inside Creo. So this is a GPU-based solver. So you must have a compatible graphics card, an NVIDIA card, to run this. So, so the idea of this is very quick, in sort of seconds, minutes, rather than minutes or hours, to get a result to help you understand what you should be doing. Okay, so that was introduced back in the early versions of Creo. In Creo 7, the main change there was the introduction of fluids as well. So we could do more than just structural, thermal, modal, and fluids now with Creo 7. So in Creo 8, a few enhancements that have been added in there. So the ability to redefine your analysis probes to basically see where the results are. So you can put a probe on a certain spot to understand where that was. Now we can move them around. We can work on with our selection highlighting to work with that probe, and also the sort of the back end. It's been updated to use the 2021 R1 release of the engine and the ANSYS engine. So that applies to both Simulation Live as well as Creo ANSYS Simulation that I'll talk on in a sec. Okay, so while we're on CSL, so in the CSL Plus, which added fluids, so now there's the ability or new functionality to support steady state fluids. Okay, and that's actually the default when you're running a fluids study. Okay, so if you already had CSL Fluids, that's just a part of it there now when you go to Creo. Okay, on the Creo ANSYS simulation side of things. So again, this was something that we talked about last year when we did our Creo 7 launch events. So Creo ANSYS simulation was introduced with Creo 7.02, so late last year, same as with the cloud-based generative topology side of things. So this is again part of the PDC ANSYS relationship. So this is bringing in the ANSYS Workbench engine into Creo. Okay, so at the moment now it supports structural, thermal, and modal. Okay, so this is basically ANSYS running inside Creo. So you don't have to step out into a separate environment. It's all embedded inside there. Okay, so that was introduced late last year with Creo. The release of Creo 8, there's been some enhancements made to that. Things around, working with your solver settings, dealing with large deflection, some licensing parts of it, grabbing the right license, mesh settings, some diagnostic things, and the like in there. Okay, so more little bits and pieces tinkering around there, but expect to see more with the Creo ANSYS simulation over coming releases. So what I'm going to do now is going to hand you back to Imran, and we'll have a little bit of a look at some of the simulation updates inside Creo 8.
Awesome, thanks, Alan. Okay, so as you can see, we're in Creo 8 again, and I've got a faucet assembly. So one thing I want to point out in the left-hand side in our model tree, so we have quite a decently complex structure. We've got a couple sub-assemblies as well as a bunch of different components. So we're going to use this to show transient and steady state flow within Creo Simulate Live. So I'll jump over to my live simulation tab, and just in our tree, we can see that we've got a fluid domain defined as water, as well as some initial thermal conditions, which is just the starting temperature of this environment. So in order to conduct our simulation, we want to input some additional boundary conditions and initial conditions. So what we're going to do, we're going to go in and we're going to define mass flow rate. And we'll do the same thing on the right-hand side. And to, I guess, replicate real-world conditions, we want to define some temperatures for the hot and cold. So I'll go ahead and do that. And the last thing we need to do is define our outlet pressure. So once we've set up our model, we can toggle on transient mode. So just from the drop down, selecting that and then hitting simulate. We'll give this a second to run, and right away we can see our results. So in the top right hand corner in our legend, we can see the timestamp, so we can track what's happening with our model over time. And then also we can use the simulation probe to monitor certain areas of our model. So this is handy. We can see our velocity changing over time. And we can also track this on a graph. So we can see the time history of it. And this is good for, in this case, we're doing fluid analysis, but we can see the same results for vibrational studies and so forth. So once we've looked at the transient, we might want to have a look at our steady state conditions. So simply all we have to do is toggle off transient mode, and Creo Simulate Live will go through. It'll run our simulation for our steady state conditions. We'll give it a moment to stabilize, and there we can see the results. So the handy thing here is that we have the ability to go in, like the transient mode, change firstly looking at velocity, so what we're actually interested in, pressure, temperature, vortices, and so forth. We can also change the units that we're interested in, and we can change the render scale. So in this case, I might want to look at a composite, which is going to give me essentially a band of different temperatures that I can cycle through and see how the different temperatures are distributed amongst my model. We can also change the upper and lower bounds of this and then fine tune it to our liking. So I'll just jump back to my baseline. So in addition to these tools, we have the ability to use flow visualization tools within CSL. So the first one is directional field. So we have the ability to take a plane and represent the flow direction at that point. So this is handy to kind of look at the flow and how it's being distributed, or the direction it's flowing in at that given cut plane. And then we can translate this in XYZ and rotate it to our desired point. We can also look at things such as the streamlines and particle effects to help us understand what's happening within our fluid boundary and whether or not our flow is behaving as we intended. So we can see if we've defined our fluid boundary correctly, if we have any obstructions that are influencing the flow and things as such. We can also go ahead and refine our parameters. So we can change the number of streamlines we're showing, the length, the width, and so forth. So you have that type of functionality to help you interrogate the model. So that's kind of like a high-level overview of steady state and transient flow within Creo Simulation Live. I'll hand it back to Alan to continue on.